what I love.
Hello, I'm Scruffy, and today I'm out adventuring in Pokémon Legends Arceus. It's quite a unique beast of a game in the Pokémon franchise, not only taking a 3D open world approach where its predecessors had more segmented, more linear worlds, but simplifying a lot of the gameplay involved with catching, training, and battling Pokémon. Instead of starting an encounter sequence in a localized battle arena with every wild Pokémon, where you have to engage it in combat in order to catch it, this game has wild Pokémon just roaming around the field, and you can capture some of them simply by throwing a Pokéball. Or if you battle them, it occurs right where they're standing in the world. These are big changes to how it feels to play a Pokémon game, so naturally it's also going to sound different too. In this video, I'd just like to note the little sound design details that show a lot of care was devoted to immersing you in this 3D world. There will be some spoiler material at the end, but I'll give you an ample warning first. So for starters, Pokémon Legends Arceus finally introduces something I don't think its series has ever had, and that many other series out there have sometimes decided not to include, which is itemized volume controls in the options menu. There are options for ambient sound volume, music volume, Pokémon cry volume. Good to see, and please continue to do this, especially in a 3D exploration game. And as you're exploring in 3D, you'll come across multiple types of terrain to traverse, and I'm happy to report that the sounds of footsteps your character makes vary with not only the type of terrain, but with the type of footwear you use on that type of terrain. Like I've mentioned in my video about The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, this is an invisible sound design detail. That is, it's meant to be innocuous because it fits the environment so well. But when previous games in the series have either used fewer generalized footstep sounds or just not had footstep sounds at all, I reveled in noticing it here. Now, this next detail is pretty prevalent to the game and central to its approach to catching Pokémon, so let's head out on an expedition to hear it. My favorite thing about the sound design in this game is that Pokémon are interpreted as animals. Not only because this is centuries before the modern bonds between humans and Pokémon, but also just to fill out a 3D nature walk with the calls of fantasy creatures. From a gameplay perspective, they cry out to signal that you're free to catch them, but they also just vocalize more like real animals would. Not just when they spawn or when you start a battle with them, but all the time. Some cries, like Kricketot's cry, happen even if no Pokémon are visible yet. They're part of the ambience of nature, like animals in the real world. I love this interpretation of Pokémon, and it continues once you catch one and have them in your party. You'll also notice that their cry has several variations for different actions: identifying the Pokémon, putting in effort to collect berries or stones, fainting in battle, that one's been around before, and several for interacting with a trainer, including falling asleep. Technically, they're all built off of the original sound, by fragmenting it and rearranging it. Even Pikachu and Eevee are back to using their original digital sounds this way. And any alpha Pokémon you encounter in this game have a lowered, overdriven, echoing version of all these sounds. By the way, these Pokémon cries are all 3D sounds. That is, they come from a source in the 3D plane, so they obviously attenuate based on how far away you, the audio listener, get from that source. But there are also 2D sounds, or sounds that play no matter where you are, either for some global event or something that could use audio feedback even when you're far away. For example, no matter how far I get from a Pokéball that's attempting to catch a Pokémon, I'll hear the little fireworks spring from its mechanism if it's successful. Because you want some form of feedback there, right? In addition, you'll hear this little jingle, another 2D sound. And I just thought it's worth a fun little mention that quite a few jingles in this game have similar rhythms and cadences to that one. 3 chords and then a different chord. And yeah, anything musical like that is also regarded as a 2D sound, even the soundtrack itself. But that doesn't make it entirely global, per se. The music in the game, out in the expedition fields, will still change depending on which area you're in, sometimes on which sub-area you're in, and on the time of day. You'll hear music no matter where you are, but you can change the music in that way. One of my favorite ways to alter the music is by entering one of the space-time distortions that pop up from time to time, when it's still developing, not when it's actually formed yet. Any song that was previously playing takes on a strange, corrupted filter when you enter the zone. And that immediately tells you something supernatural is afoot in there. Another bit of music I'd like to highlight is the theme to Jubilife Village, the hub town you visit after you finish your expedition. Here you'll constantly hear a relaxing, warm, rich ballad that assures your safety and scores the humble villagers just trying to get by, while slowly learning to trust and cooperate with Pokémon beyond just respecting them as animals. First thing I'd like to note in this theme is something really specific: the time signature changes. For the majority of the tune, it's in 12/8 time signature, meaning that each measure can be divided into 12 eighth notes, grouped in threes. However, take a listen to the very beginning of this tune. First time I heard that, I had to count along, because I could have sworn that B major 9 chord lasted longer than the time signature should permit. And sure enough, counting along at the same tempo, it indeed lasts longer than exact 12/8, or even exact 13/8 can measure. That happens the first 3 instances of this progression, and then it rigidly becomes 12/8. If I had to write out a score for performers for this, I could label the first few measures tempo rubato. That means that the performer can stretch certain sounds beyond the marked tempo, mainly for emphasis, or to let a pleasant sound like B major last a little bit longer. And then after that, I'd write a tempo, to indicate it's time to follow the tempo more exactly. Now, zooming out a bit, the rest of the theme sticks with a repeating gesture of that B major 9 rolling into A sharp minor 9 to D sharp minor 7, which to me sounds like it's flirting with F sharp major as a tonal center. But it never quite gets there, which is a very nostalgic, kind of wistful sound. And the instrument playing the melody changes whether you're outdoors or in a house. But zooming out even more, this whole theme sounds like it's headed toward Jubilife City's theme, from Pokémon Diamond and Pearl and Platinum, hinting that this village will become that city centuries from now. And as you continue through the game's story and expand the village and its connection with Pokémon, something really cool happens. You unlock more of this theme. It gets longer. And each section added is closer and closer to Jubilife City's theme, until the main melody from the city is outright included. They could have simply replaced the Jubilife Village theme with more involved and referential themes over the course of the game. But instead they approached it more like building a house, with a foundation first, and then layers added on top. That's really cool. And of course, that's not the only reference this soundtrack makes to Diamond and Pearl. I mean, this is an ancient version of the Sinnoh region, so Sinnoh themes are everywhere. I want to put a spoiler warning here because I'm about to show a chart that my friends DavoGato, Rudd, and I have worked on that documents some of these references. In case you haven't played through Pokémon Legends Arceus or Pokémon Diamond and Pearl or Platinum, this chart will have some late-game locations and information on it. I realize that the Pokémon franchise is in a bit of a special position for being able to add so many references to its own games. It kind of necessitates that history to justify adding something veteran players will notice. But when this game is indeed so tied to the story, lore, and environments of Diamond and Pearl, how could you not pay homage to the music? Even the Celestica flute, the overtone flute that you use in Legends Arceus to summon noble Pokémon to ride, plays a motif that has shown up throughout Diamond and Pearl. First as a press start sound at the very beginning of the game, and last as part of the tune used to summon Arceus itself. Well, it would have been. In the original game, that event went unused, inaccessible without an unreleased Azure flute. Regardless, it seems fitting that the musical motif would pop up in this game as well, as though that motif really goes back centuries, representing Arceus. That's something about all these musical connections. They innately solidify the timeline between these games, creating continuity in the areas you explore and the parallels you realize. That speaks to the utility of the soundtrack and soundscape of Legends Arceus as a whole. All the music and sound effects are pulling their weight, establishing this game in the Pokémon canon, establishing an open 3D world populated with Pokémon as bona fide fantasy animals, and establishing this game as the best Pokémon experience I've played in a long while. Here's hoping the care involved and the lessons learned make their way into the next Pokémon game with a 3D environment to explore, or into your game's 3D environment, if you need to add some quirky animals to it. A special thanks to DavoGato for compiling recordings of sounds, and to him, Wolfgang, and Rudd for helping with the script and that musical reference chart. I have no doubt we haven't covered all the musical connections between these games, but it's certainly fun getting to recognize them while you play. And, as always, I'd like to thank my patrons on Patreon, who help keep my video making process sustainable. If you'd like to support my work directly and get perks like your credit here, seeing videos early, a vote on what music I arrange, and more behind-the-scenes content, you can visit my Patreon link in this video's description. And with that, I'm Scruffy, and thank you very much for watching.